My name is Gerry Powell. I mostly known for a comic called The Goon that's published by Dark Horse.
And you were reading comics young. Tell me about how you got into comics.
Yeah, I'm. It's funny. I hear this kind of story a lot about people who, you're a kid, you read comics, and then you kind of leave them and you rediscover them when you're a teenager. It's the same thing that happened to me. I loved comics when I was a little kid. Loved Spider-Man and the Hulk and all that stuff, and kind of got away from them, and then was reintroduced to some grittier stuff when I was like in junior high by a friend of mine, and I was already, I carried around sketch pads and stuff, and was doing drawings and making up stories to go along with them, like but prose, stories. So I was kind of doing like little illustrated book kind of thing. But then, rediscovering comics, I immediately felt like, wow, this is what I should be doing, because I'm making up stories and doing illustrations to go with them, and that's, I should be doing comics. So it's pretty much how, my comic reading experience went.
How old were you when you realized this is it?
I think I was about 14, 15. I really just, it became my sole focus, just becoming a comic book artist.
I think I read you traveled to a con. Tell me about.
Actually, the way I broke into the business, I've always been a huge Bernie Wrightson fan, and he was coming out to Nashville for a signing at a local store. And at the time, it was in the 90s when all of the Bad Girl books were very popular, and Vampirella was really big at the time. And the guy who was writing it, Tom Snigoski, was also doing the signing with Bernie Wrightson. So I laid my portfolio down in front of Bernie Wrightson and asked him, do I have a chance, get any work in business name? And Tom was kind of looking over his shoulder and was like, yeah, that's good stuff. Here's my card. And I think within a week he had gotten me a job, drawing a Razor story that he was writing.
Before that, didn't you do some portfolio reviews or anything, or was that your first?
I did a lot of submission through mail because I live in Nashville and it's so far away from anything. So yeah, I had a stack of rejection letters that high. Got rejected a lot, and really, if it had kept going that way, if I'd have just kept doing the mail-in submission thing, I don't know where it would have ended up. I doubt I would be, it's hard to say. Maybe they would have paid attention, maybe not, but I was just getting no no love through the mail submissions.
Who are you sending to?
Everybody I could find. Anyone who was publishing at the time, I'm sure got a sample from me at some point. Yeah, because I was mailing them to everybody.
And how long were you doing that before you met Bernie?
A year or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is relatively quick.
Well, yes and no, I guess. I don't know. I mean, just when you're aspiring to do something, I don't think you look at it as like, all right, well, the day I graduated high school, the timer is on. I got to get, so it seemed like a long time. Yeah.
Did you have any formal training in art?
No, I'm completely self-taught. Yeah. But I think I'm kind of a hyper-analytical person, so I would just buy art books from people that I like, and just study it, and figure out their technique and kind of play with it and implement it into what I was doing. Yeah.
So how long was it from your first publication to The Goon?
Actually, I don't know. I've never thought about the timeline.
Did you do much else before The Goon?
Yeah, I did quite a bit. I did, like I said, I did a lot of stuff with Tom on Razor at London Night, company that used to be around, and I did a lot of inking work. I did inking work for Marvel, and I was always doing little fill-in stories in independent comics. And
How did you land the inking for Marvel?
Through artist Kyle Hotes, who actually is doing the Billy the Kid stuff with me now. I used to ink him when he was, working for Marvel. And yeah, I did a lot of fill-in stuff for Dark Horse too, Buffy. I would do fill-in issues of Buffy, and I did just a lot of sporadic work here and there, but I could never. No one was offering me that monthly, job. It was just like I was just the fill-in guy all the time. That was pretty much my career for a good chunk of time. Was just the fill-in guy,
You were developing relationships though with.
Yeah, exactly. It was like I said, I was doing fill-in work on Buffy, and the editor was Scott Alley. And then, when I come along and self-publish the Goon, he's the one who puts it on Mike Richardson's desk and says, I think we should do this. So, it was building relationships with, in the business.
So, did you shop Goon around, and why choose to self-publish?
I shopped it around everywhere. No one really wanted it. They didn't understand it, which is understandable. It's kind of weird. And, I got a lot of, we can't sell this because there's nothing we can compare it to. Like, you can't say, it's just like Star Wars or something,
Well, that's what I say about it.
Yeah. But I shopped it around everywhere, even to Dark Horse, and everyone passed just because they didn't know what to do with it. And I tell this to people that ask me to describe what the book is about. I say, well, it's really one of those things you just kind of have to read because it's a little all over the place. And I think that was the problem with trying to pitch it. It was just something, writing it out in a pitch with a few illustrations is not going to be the same as, reading it because it's so kind of weird. But I think that worked against it in that case. And then once I did start doing some books and you had something to sit down and read, Dark Horse immediately snapped it up. So
And it was successful as a self-published book.
it was. Surprisingly enough, I made money right off the bat, which is not at all a typical thing in self-publishing. I was really lucky that I had some free printing worked out with a printer for an advertising deal I helped them out with that I illustrated, and so I was able to use that for my launch, which helped me save a bunch of money, and I got stuff printed early before it was even solicited to send out to comic shops and everything, and I think that really helped boost the initial sales a little bit. And then as soon as the first book came out, it seemed like the internet buzz just immediately began, and that's what really, I think, helped establish it. There were a lot of internet review sites and everything that were really praising it, and helped build up the readership pretty fast.
Was it the first thing you'd written?
It was. The first issue of The Goon is the first full-length comic that I ever wrote myself. So yeah, it got better.